All right. So that's what's up, ladies and gentlemen. It's your man, DJ Mr. Chris, with another fresh, dope episode of Hip Hopcalypse. Man, oh man. So I told y'all what time it was. You know, I say this every episode because I can't get enough of myself. I'm only messing with y'all, but real talk. So today I have a special guest that I'm very, very happy to have on the show. She is the author of a book called I Am Her, which is an acronym that I will let her explain. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest on Hip Hopcalypse, I have Dr. Pamela Gurley on the show. Doctor, how you doing today?
I am phenomenal. How are you?
Oh, you know what? Every day is a holiday, except for when you don't get any sleep. I didn't sleep too well last night.
But you
So
have to you have to make up for it tonight then. Just go to
yeah,
bed a
yeah,
little bit early.
yeah. Go a little bit, go to bed a little bit earlier, and don't eat or drink things that I shouldn't be drinking. So at that time of night, that's going to keep you up. So um, thank you, Pepsi, for keeping me up. So so doctor, thank you so much again for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All
I'm
right.
I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Okay, so we're going to hop right into it. I am not a stereotype. That's the first statement that is on the cover of your book called I Am Her. Why don't you let the listeners know a little bit about I Am Her and what that acronym means? And what we'll do is after that, Doctor, we'll go back to a little bit about your roots because you do have an interesting story. So why don't you explain to the listeners a little bit about I Am Her?
So it I am not a stereotype. I am HER, derived from a poem that I wrote that's called I Am Not a Stereotype. I am HER. And HER is a derivative of different characteristics that I feel that match me. So it's resilient, it's energetic, it's rhapsodic, it's just but all of them had HEs and R's. It's a very not long but extensive, very descriptive poem of how I describe myself. And basically, it's how the world has looked at me and how I chose to look at myself. And so I felt the need to write a book from that poem because a lot of stereotypes are out there about Black women. And I just felt like, you know what, I'm kind of fed up. I feel like that narrative needs to change and that there are some dynamic and brilliant and remarkable Black women out here who do not deserve these stereotypes. So that was the point behind my book.
Okay. And so before we get into those stereotypes, because that's very interesting, because as a Black man, I have a lot of stereotypes about Black women. Some of them could be seen as derogatory, according, to my girlfriend, but we could touch base on that. So tell the listeners a little bit about your beginnings, because I do want to get into those stereotypes. So tell the listeners a little bit about your beginnings.
Okay, so I am multi-ethnic. I'm Mexican, Indian, and Black. I mean, my hair is curly.
Hmm.
And so a good bit of growing up has always been, what are you mixed with? And I don't feel as though you should have to make a choice because I've always been, oh, you're not really Black enough. You don't act Black. You don't speak Black. You talk like you're white. And to me, I'm just being me. And so I allowed those things to fester because I never really on one hand, I never said I cared about it, but on the other hand, as growing up, yes, it does affect you and how the world shapes you. And it didn't shape me in a way that I thought was good for me. And it led me down a very toxic road of looking and trying to find myself and find who I am and find where I belong, because naturally socialization makes us feel like we need to belong. And when in fact, it doesn't really teach us how to belong, but how to stay ourselves and
So
how to stay true to ourselves.
So did you grow up in an urban area? What was your upbringing like? Was it suburban, urban, rural?
Military brat. And
Hmm.
so I grew up between Georgia and Washington, D.C. after I was 5 and we came back from Hawaii. So from 18 months to 5 years old was in Hawaii. So it's a lot of beach. I don't really recall any differences that I would have noticed. I have friends that was at parties of all nationalities, but here again, we were all military families. When I got back to the mainland, as they say, it was just different. I was looked at different. I was regarded different, except
Mm,
for when I was at home. I felt comfortable at home because my sisters and I are all very much alike. We like a multitude of music. My mom poured into us to allow us to be whatever we wanted to be and like whatever we wanted to like. And so from music to television to books to magazines, it was very cultural, multicultural. And so, but a lot of people don't look at it like that.
okay.
Not when I was growing up.
Okay. And so, and I know that your time is limited, so we're just going to hop right into it. So, I am her. Uh, you're uh, you're multi ethnic,
Hmm.
as you explained. But was that written? I'm more than sure it wasn't written from a multi ethnic viewpoint. It was written more from a black lady's standpoint of view, because looking at you at first glance, and I'm more than sure that 99.9% of anyone who looks at you, they're going to associate you with a black lady. And so,
Correct.
what was so you already told me the inspiration, but what was the straw that broke the camel's back to say I need to come out with this book here so we can address some of the stereotypes?
So I have nieces that are both biracial and then on a multitude of spectrum of colors. And especially for my biracial nieces, I didn't want them to feel like they have to choose between black and white, or liking black things versus white things. And I battled with that. I battled with trying to figure out what am I supposed to like, because I was told I don't act black enough because I don't just listen to or subscribe to black music or black movies. And there's still a lot of black movies I haven't seen, not by just because that's not been things that I typically like. And I feel like I should be able to like what I like without being considered, without having my quote unquote race card taken.
Yeah.
Or
Have you had family members take your race card away? Because I mean, you're very
no.
articulate. You're definitely very articulate, and by listening to you on the telephone, I wouldn't think that you were a black lady. So
I know.
that which I guess is more, which is um, one of the stereotypes that we can jump into, and um, so you have a prominent position. You don't have to. I know that is very top secret and everything and such. But what's your educational background?
I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in health service administration, and I have my doctorate in management. And I also am an adjunct professor at times. I'm on a break right now, but yeah.
Okay, and so what thrusted and what propelled you to achieve all of those degrees and get the accolades that you've received?
Because at the time, if I have to be honest with myself, it was the only one thing that uh, I knew I wanted. I knew that that was in me. I knew how to excel in that way. But on the inside, I was very dirty, very toxic, very just not really feeling good about myself. So no matter how many milestones that I've achieved in my life during that time frame or that time period in my life, it never made me feel whole because what I sought was validation for myself, and it took a long time for me to get that. And that's what made me really write my book. Is that we need to get out of trying to box people in and just be unapologetically who you are, no matter what.
You know, in a sense, we do. It's okay to be unapologetic with who we are as far as with the acceptance. Um, and so when I had read that, it kind of made me feel like, okay, if I were a woman looking at the book, um, I am going to get some female empowerment. I'm going to be empowered. I'm going to be inspired. And so someone that's looking at your book and um, it seems like it's doing really
Mhm.
well, but someone that's picking up your book and looking at it for the first time, what are they going to get from the beginning to the end of your book?
um, Introspection, self-awareness, a different level of looking at a community of how we treat Black women. It's because I cover it from three different segments. There's three parts of my book there, and even though it's not a long or lengthy book, it's very conversational. It's like grab a glass of wine, let's sit and have a talk. It's like talking right across the table and hearing my thoughts and my perspective and my journey of how I got here. I was in 3 domestic violence relationships. And what triggered that, I talk about how I came out of that. I talk about my healthy relationship that I've been in for 7 years. And then I also talk about, just the natural hair journey that I went through. I talked about, how, how Black women are not bitter, how we're not angry, and how those natural emotions we're entitled to have without being boxed into something. Because I even put on there, nobody says anything to the angry white man who's been angry for centuries, but he's not labeled. But if a Black woman is assertive, we're all of a sudden angry because we're assertive.
So, so me and me and a few people, we have a good conversation about this. Just as of recently, one of the things is that, well, my first question to you: do you think that the competition level for a Black lady is that much different than a white lady,
Competition in what way?
or just let's just say job market? Let's just say how the world views a Black lady. Um, I think what Michelle Obama did was she she was a poster child for a lot of Americans of what Black women should be like, and I really feel that a lot of Black women aren't like that. But that's not a diss. That's not a diss. That's not in a derogatory form. Um, so I guess what I'm trying to get at, as far as competing, why do you feel Black women? Why would a Black woman feel that they have to compete? Why would a Black woman feel that they have um, uh, that the odds are against them compared to any other races out there?
Okay, so first and foremost, there are a lot of Michelle Obamas out here, a tremendous amount. I think that society has a way of tearing down or not shining light on women like Michelle Obama. And if you even look at when she was in office, it was always something negative. It was like, oh, you can't do anything right, despite how educated she was, how beautiful she was. People found a way to have something negative to say, no matter what she did. And so that's a societal issue. That's first and foremost. Second, it is very difficult in the way, in from a competition standpoint. And I don't even think, Black women necessarily compete. We just go in for what we realize we deserve, and we just don't always get it. Because, and a lot of it has to do with the color of the skin. A lot of it has to do with stereotypes, but I'm blessed to know a lot of very inspiring women who have paved the way for women like me to see on the other side of those opportunities, to make me, work even harder for them.
Do you think America is afraid of strong Black women?
Oh,
Uh,
hell yes. Let me tell you something. I wrote in my book that the reason why Black women are looked at or regarded is because we are the most resilient of all races, hands down.
and what
Black
makes
women can find a way.
and okay, I'm sorry about that. And so, we talk about resiliency. And in what way are we talking about? Motherhood? Are we talking about um, going out and providing for her family when there isn't a father there in the household? In what ways? Because I think all women, for the most part of it, they have that same ability. And so I'm just trying to figure out what makes Black women different.
So, in my personal opinion, and here's why I wrote about it again. Black women can make a way out of no way at all. Having the bare minimum, they're going to make sure that their kids have. They're going to, and a lot of times their kids won't see them suffer. I mean, if you go back and you ask most people who grew up in the 60s and 70s, or even the early 80s, their parents didn't have a lot, but a lot of kids didn't know, because the mother made sure that the kids got almost everything that they asked for, or did whatever they had to do to make things work for their families.
Okay. And my mother, God rest her soul, who passed away. I did see my mother uh, persevere through a lot to be able to provide for us. And so you mentioned something, and my apologies that you were in 3 domestic violent relationships. And so my apologies for that. And quite obviously, that's what has made you that's what propelled you and made you stronger into the woman that you are. And so let's talk about stereotypes. What's one of the main stigmas and the main stereotypes that Black women have to endure in 2020?
Well, we still have that angry stereotype hanging over our heads,
Hmm. Hmm.
or that we're bitter,
And,
or
and why
that,
is that though? Why is that? Because that's been a stereotype and a stigma for years. And I love my sisters. All right, I love my sisters to death. However, though, however, I can kind of see that.
intolerance does not make us angry. And I think
Hmm.
that's, let me say that first and foremost. Assertiveness does not make us angry, but it's how other people, mostly Black men, who feed that stereotype outside of our community, versus trying to figure out how we protect the women in this community. So I want to attribute that first, but I give an example in the book that if I'm hanging out with my girlfriends at a bar, and somebody comes up to me and wants to buy me a drink or wants to have conversations, and I basically just say, no thank you, I'm not interested, and they keep pushing, and I might even say, I said I wasn't interested. And I've been told, well, why are you mad then? And I was just trying to do you a favor. I'm like, okay, so actually who's the one that's really getting angry here? Not me, because I'm enjoying myself, but I'm considered angry, or in a negative. I've been called all kind of names for those things, but
And I'm sorry
that's
about that.
unfair.
I'm
No,
sorry
but I'm
about
saying,
that.
but that's unfair. That's me asserting my position in a very respectful way, because I feel like the same energy I give out, I want back, but it's not received that way because somebody else wants to force whatever they want on me.
So
Um,
I know that you can't speak, and this is a rabbit hole that I didn't want to go down. But hey, listen, this is what it's all about. Um, so you put yourself in that position to where you could be assertive and take a stand. And I know that you can't speak for all of the Black women that's out there, but what's your position as far as biracial relationships? You're seeing a Black man with a white woman. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. You can plead the
I'll
fifth.
answer.
But
No,
what's
I'm
your
gonna answer.
position or what's your stand? Because um, whereas Black woman could be assertive to where, hey, listen, I want to buy you that drink and you don't let me buy that drink, then there might be a Hispanic or Latino woman over there that might let me buy her drink. And then we're the ones that get called, he sold out, or he's a sellout, or he's whitewashed, or this and that. You hear it. And so,
I do.
I mean, so what's your views
I
on that?
totally.
Okay. What's your
So
views on that?
I I've married Black twice. I've married white once. I have a white brother-in-law. I have biracial nieces. To me, quite honestly, love does not have a color. I feel like that's whatever somebody's preference is, that's their preference. But what I will say is, my problem is when you 100% down your race and say that's the reason why you don't date. That is what I have issues with, because to me, it's you're finding excuses for your behavior.
No, and I agree. I do know some friends who has tried to go out there and date sisters, date nothing but Black women, and they get shot down. And even some of their family members have told them some of the most nastiest comments and everything like that. But interesting perspective. I think we could
But shot down is one thing. Okay, so here's the other thing. People need to be more introspective about what their expectations are when they're out there dating. If you're dating with intent, then look intentionally. Don't look because something looks good in the moment and that's what you're going after, because sometimes a man's comments to a woman can come off very disrespectfully, or come off chauvinistically, or any of those things. Women don't just sit here and are straight out rude. Not all, because I know
okay.
there's some women who could just be in a bad mood and that on that day. But there are some men. I will tell you, there are some men who have no respect for other people's relationships, and they still push. There are some men that are try to, use religion as a basis for things. So there are so many ways to look at dating and relationships and all of those other things. But here again, if you're going to be disrespectful to your race, I don't care what race it is, and say I'm never going to date because of this, that's you might want to just up your level of the quality of woman that you're looking for. Put yourself in a different environment.
Okay, okay, and I can see that. You know what? You're going to be back. You're definitely going to be back on the show again when you have a little bit more time. So for all of the listeners listening, there will be a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 because we will go down a rabbit hole on this one. I have a lot more to say about that, but I don't want to beat the dust out of the rug on it. And so we'll leave it at that for right now, Doctor. So stereotypes. One of the one thing one of the things that I I have always wondered about is fashion such as hair and nails within um which I'm more than sure somewhere it could be in your book, how black women embrace fashion. Is that
I
a
don't
is that
I,
a,
I don't necessarily talk address fashion. I do address what you put out there to the world is what our young girls will model.
okay.
And I think that goes from behavior to how you're dressing and the way that you dress things up, the way that you really carry yourself. I have a whole chapter called natural discomfort, because when I went natural, it was a significant transition for me, but it was more about me than the outside world. But I did recognize that I was treated differently.
Okay. How much social influence do you think in I'm kind of baiting you into this question. I have to apologize before, but how much social influence do you believe plays a part into the fashion of a black woman? This is probably separate completely from your book, but
Yeah.
how much influence socially out in the world, um, the Instagrams, the Facebook plays an influence on a black woman's fashion, including long hair.
So I used to have extremely long hair, like so long that most people thought it was weave and fake and
So
all of
in
that
particular,
stuff.
I'm in particularly talking about I'm in particularly talking about weaves.
So that's what I'm saying. And people always used to think and assume that I had a weave when I didn't. I still feel like it goes back to preference. Here again, I will say that if you are wearing weaves because you are trying to fit in to look like everybody else, that's a problem. That's a self-esteem issue. But if you are just saying, you know what, I want to protect my natural hair, I don't like to do my hair, then, and I know a lot of people who are like that. I mean, for myself, I'm either natural or I'm braided. That's it.
Okay, okay. So it's all about preference then.
It's about preference,
Okay,
but it's also about self-esteem and preference. I think that if your self-esteem and your self-awareness is high, by all means go for the gusto. But when you are trying to cover up to make yourself feel better to the world and how the world sees you, that's an issue.
okay. All right. So, what are some of the comments that you've received about your book? I'm more than sure that you have some positive feedback from people that's read the book and said, "Hey, listen, I'm a guy and I'm going to read it." But what are some of the feedback that you've received about the book?
I've gotten lots of great feedback from men and women. I know for sure a lot of them have said that it was great to get to see inside of the mind of how I thought, and giving them ways to rethink about self-awareness and being more respectful. I've gotten conversation starters about sitting on your pedestal and what that actually looks like and mean, because that's my own pedestal philosophy. It's just about energy and removing toxicity from your life, and that's where you grow into that self-awareness. A lot of them have taken a different perspective at the look of natural hair, not realizing, geez, is that what you really go through? But there's just a whole lot of different, feedback that I've gotten on my book that's been really, really, really great. I mean, a matter of fact, because of that, I'm writing a, another book based off of one of the chapters.
Okay, okay. Is there anything in that book that really talks about um, I'm more than sure there is, but it talks about what type of backbone that you have to get within a spouse, male or female, in there. So I'm more than sure you have a section with regards to relationship in there.
I have no real relationship, but I think a lot of our relationships that we choose that are important to us have to do with ourselves.
Okay.
And so you have to feel whole and be whole in order to receive whole.
Okay. So that's what's up.
That's the purpose of my book.
That's what's up. That's what's up. You know, I know that you're pressed for time. We're definitely going to have you back on the show, and the next time that you have some time, it's going to be a knockdown drag out for sure. Because I'm gonna have some, I'm gonna have some other ladies on here. I kind of
Bring
get,
it.
I kind of get beat up a little bit. I kind of get beat up just a little bit for some of my thoughts and my opinions by my lady, but you know, when she sees this, she's going to be definitely happy that someone else, I heard it from someone else. I love all of my sisters. I love all people in general. Just real quick before I let you go, in today's age right now, you know, we're dealing with we're sweeping up the remnants of the whole George Floyd um, racial injustice, uh, systemic racism, systemic racism, etc. What are some tips, in your opinion? What do we have to do to keep the resilience up, as far as not only a Black woman, Black man, but as far as a community? What do we have to do as far as a community to be respected more in our
Uh,
communities?
Support one another, stand up for one another, and protect one another.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know y'all gonna get on DJ Mr. Chris. That's all right. Y'all beat DJ Mr. Chris up quite a bit. I got a couple of not so nice DMs a couple of times, but I'm more than sure this won't be the exception. Dr. Pamela Gurley was on Hip Hopcalypse, y'all. Y'all need to make sure
Thank
that
you
y'all
so
go
much for
out.
having me.
Y'all need to go out and go support her. Y'all need to go out and support her. Buy her book, I Am Her. Doctor, where can they find you at, and where can they buy that book at?
You can purchase my book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Apple iTunes via ebook, or you can go straight to my website, www.iamdrpgurley.com/shop. And you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and my YouTube channel at IAMDRPGURLEY. I am Dr. P. Gurley.
That's what's up. That's what's cracking, Doctor. So, hey, Doctor, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you so much for
thank you so
having
much
me.
for being on. And hold the line, Doctor. I really appreciate it. Hold the line.
Okay.